Hello everyone and welcome to this afternoon webinar with me. My name is Andy Caffrey and I'm from EdTechTeam UK, Google Certified Trainer and Certified Innovator. And in today's webinar, we're going to take a deep look into Google Classroom. So if you've got any questions as we go through today, feel free to drop it in the chat over on the right hand side. And every so often as we go, I'll just jump over the chat and answer questions that are popping up from people watching the webinar. So welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we're going to get started by digging into Google Classroom. So let's come out of that slide. Google Classroom. Like all the Google products, you can always get to all the Google products by going to the name of the product.google.com. So in this case, on the internet, in the address bar, I'm just going to classroom.google.com. Also, once you sign into Google, you can go there from the picker. So on the right-hand side here, there's a little Google Apps picker. And you have these different tools that you can go to, and Classroom should be on there somewhere. And you can drag and drop, move these around. So if as a teacher, your Google Classroom is right down the bottom of the list on the sort of second or third page down there somewhere, feel free to move it up the top so you can easily access Classroom from any of the other Google tools by going over to Picker. So that just brings you to a page that looks maybe like this, although you might not have any classes there yet. But some schools create the classes for teachers. And in other schools, teachers have to create their own classes. So this is the home page of Google Classroom. And on this page, you see all of your classes there lined up ready. If you didn't see a class or you want to create a new one, go to the plus button on the top right-hand side. And it says create class. And it will ask you some questions. Now, the only required field here is a class name. So I'm going to teach Year 7 Maths. But all the rest of these, section, subject, room, these are all optional boxes. So you don't have to put anything in these if you don't want to. You can if you want to. It's entirely your choice what you put in these boxes. You can choose. But once you've filled them in, press create. And that causes Google to go and create a classroom for you and your class to use. So Google goes away and just creates a classroom. And here is my classroom for Year 7 Maths. I'm going to start by just showing you the people page. At the top here, you can see we've got different pages: stream, classwork, people, and grades. I just want to start with people because right now we're in a Google Classroom, but there's no one in it but me. So not really much use in using it until we add some people in. Over on the people page, we have teachers and students. Obviously, I'm a teacher because I created the classroom. I can add other teachers in. If I co-teach a class with 2 people, I can just press the plus button there, pop their email address in, invite them to the class. And then down there with students, we can invite the students in. There's a couple of different ways, in fact, 3 different ways of getting students into Google Classroom. So one way would be to press the invite students, like we did with the teacher, put their email address in, and they will get an invite to Google Classroom. And if you're not face-to-face with students, or maybe in this period of distance learning, you're at home and trying to set Google Classroom up from home, then that might be appropriate. You only need to do it once to link the students to the classroom. Alternatively, if you can, you've got the students around in front of you, you could share a class code with them. So there's a code here, 6VLMQL2 is the code for this classroom. And over on the stream page, there's also that code at the top there. If I press the little button, it makes it nice and big. So I could show that to my class, tell my class to go to Google Classroom. They would press the plus button and press join class and put the code in. So that's the second way of doing it. So students could join with the code. You could force students to join with their email address from the people page. And then the third way, some schools will sync. They will connect their school information system or their management information system to Google, and they'll just pre-populate all the classes for you. So some of you might go to Google Classroom and find all the classes from your timetable and all the students is already there, and that's created for you by someone who's working in the admin side of things. So 3 different ways really of getting students into a Google Classroom. But let's assume that the students are in now, and let's take you through some of the main features of Google Classroom. Most of the time, most of the activity in Classroom happens on the stream page. It's the page that loads up when you go into Google Classroom. So it's the first thing that everybody sees when you arrive in Google Classroom. And just to take you through some of the features on this page. So at the top here, we've got this sort of header bar with an image, and you can change that if you don't like the chosen. In this case, it's chosen like a pink maths theme. I can select different themes, the different sort of different themes and colors and examples in there. So I might want that theme, might be more appropriate. Or alternatively, I can upload my own image. So if I've got a class image or something I want to use that's personal to me, I can upload a photo to appear there. Then below that, we have this area where it says share something with your class. And this is the stream area in Google Classroom. And the stream area is where we put in information that we want to share with our class. So in this case, I might just put hello class as a message to my class, press post, and it posts it here on the stream in Google Classroom. And the stream very much follows a social media network type space. And the most recent post is at the top, and then as posts get older, they simply move down the page. So if I made another post now, it would sit above that one and so on. It is possible as a teacher to move things back to the top. So this one already is at the top, so I can't move it back there. But if there's something important drops down, you can go down the stream, find it, and press move to top, and it brings it back to the top of the feed. Because students tend to go for whatever's right in front of them when it loads up. So if you've got some important work or an important message for them, put it right at the top of the feed on the stream page so they see what it is as soon as Classroom loads in. You'll notice that below that there's the option for other people to leave comments. So in my Google Classroom right now, I have this turned on so that students can leave comments and teachers can leave comments as well on the stream page. So there's that interactivity between students and teachers. If you don't want students to be able to leave comments, over in the settings area, so go to the top right hand side of the settings cog and down to general settings here, where it says stream, students can post and comment. You could change that to students can only comment or only teachers can post and comment. So it's your choice how open you want your stream to be. One of the things I would say at this time of at the moment when we're looking at distance learning is thinking about, okay, we do want students to comment. We do want that level of interactivity between a teacher and a student. So I would be tempted to leave it so that students can comment on the stream. You can always police those comments. So if a student leaves an inappropriate comment, you can come in and delete the comment. Obviously, you'll know who it is because their name comes up and it'll be a student who's in your classroom. And you can also mute an individual student. So if you've got one student and maybe you leave some questions and he leaves the answers, and you don't want the rest of the class to keep seeing the answers, you can mute that student from posting. So everyone else can ask questions and they can't. And that's done through the dots at the end again there. I can't mute myself, but for any other student post, I can mute the post. So that's just a little bit about the stream page. As a teacher, most of your activity tends to happen over on the classwork page. So we've got the classwork page over here. And on the classwork page, we can create assignments. So we go to create an assignment to create something we want our class to do. So create an assignment, and it brings us this page. And in terms of the required, there's lots of boxes on this page, but in terms of sort of minimum requirements, the title is in fact all you need. If you want to just what's this, a maths class, isn't it? Let's do write a story. Not necessarily appropriate for a maths class, but never mind. We could put the title in as write a story, and then with all the other boxes on this page are optional, but let's just run through what they do. So after we've given that, we could give some further detailed instructions. So please write a 400-word story. And then underneath that, we have the option to add some resources in. So we can add things in Google Drive, we can add links in, we can add files from the internet. We could add a website, a YouTube video. If there's a great video about story writing, we can add that in there. So we're sort of packaging up resources that are going to go with this piece of work we want students to do. Or on the right-hand side, we have the Create button. So the Create button I find really useful because on this case, I want them to write a story, and it might be nice to type it in Google Docs. So I can just put Create Google Docs, and it will go and just create me a blank Google Doc. Now, it'll load it up for me, and I could, if I wanted to, create some sort of worksheet or some sort of writing frame or some steps that I want the students to complete. But for now, I'll just call this story, and then I'll go back to my classwork, and that's still attached down there. At the moment, that's set to students can view file, which means they'll just be able to see my blank doc, which really is no use at all. What I would suggest is that we change that to something like students can edit file. That would be all of them on one document, but most usefully, make a copy for each student. Make a copy for each student is the same as me as a teacher going off to the photocopier, putting the worksheet or the piece of paper through the photocopier 30 times, coming back and handing it out, so one for each student. there will be a version of this document for every student in my class, and they'll all be able to work on their own version without seeing who's working on something else. So if I would say one of the most powerful tools in Google Classroom it's that. The ability to get students quickly onto their own work, where they're working away on their own work, without that confusion of who's on what doc, who needs to share, whether a teacher can see it. You can see all of the work of your class because we've created it in this way. So we've added a document now. On the right-hand side, we have some other options. So we're setting this for Year 7 maths class. If I teach more than one class in the year group, I could assign it at this point to more than one class. So I could pick off that list. I've also got the option from all students to differentiate. So I could pick maybe just certain students. If I had a differentiated version of this assignment, I could send one version of it to some students, and maybe a version for students with higher ability to a different version of the assignment. So if you want to do differentiation, you can by selecting the appropriate students over here. But by default, it's going to send it to just all the students in the class. Points. I can have a numerical point score. I can have it ungraded. It's down to me to decide how I want to score this assignment. In the settings area, you can create custom mark schemes in Google Classroom. So if you want ABC, if you want 1 to 9, if you want pass, merit, distinction, it's entirely up to you to choose what sort of scales you want to use for your work. And you can set those up in the settings area. Do I want a due date? So on this one, I'm going to put a due date in for tomorrow and a time. I'll leave it at midnight. Be nice and evil. So the due date and time, if you use due date and time on an assignment, it will inject in the student's Google Calendar the deadline for that piece of work. So that's the advantage of putting a due date in. Topics. I haven't got any topics in my classroom right now. I could create one at this point. Topics help students organize their work. If your Google Classroom is going to be very busy and maybe full of lots of different types of work. So if I was a primary school teacher and I'm using one single Google Classroom for all of my primary work, I might want literacy as a topic, numeracy as a topic, science as a topic, so that the students can easily organize, okay, where's all my science work versus where's all my literacy work. So topics help us filter classrooms if we've got a lot of content in there. Other teachers use units like rivers, and as a geographer, might use rivers and coasts as topics. And then other teachers don't use topics at all. Again, it's optional, it's your choice. Below that, a couple of additional features now. These are quite new, and so you just arrived into Google Classroom. One is called rubrics. And rubrics is when you have a mark scheme where you're going to have, I would often call them level descriptors. So where you might have a basic level descriptor, an intermediate, and an advanced level descriptor. So if you've got that, you want to give those sort of level descriptors over, you could use rubrics and then reuse them from assignment to assignment. I'm not going to go into detail on those because they're more advanced feature. And the last one is originality reports. Originality reports is going to scan this work against the internet and see if any of my students copied. So if one of them goes out and finds a 400-word story off the internet and just pastes it in and hands that in, originality reports is going to flag that and tell me what websites they've pasted off. So it's a really nice feature, but you can only use it a limited number of times. If you go into the options here, it'll tell you about the fact that you can only use originality reports, if I turn it on, 3 assignments in each classroom. So it's limited in terms of use, because obviously it takes some power to go and check that work. So those are all the options when I'm making an assignment. Once I finish that, I can press assign, and it's going to notify my students. So it's going to email them and tell them there's a new assignment. It's going to put this in the Google Class stream. So it'll be at the top of the stream in Google Classroom. If they've got the mobile phone app installed, it's going to ping up like a text message. And obviously the deadline is going to go in their calendar as well. So really it's going to sort of message them in lots of ways so they can't avoid knowing what's going on with Google Classroom. If I was writing this at 11 o'clock at night, because I'm doing some preparation work, I might not want to go and do all that live. So the other options are to schedule it. So I could say, well, actually, this is good for tomorrow. So let's schedule this to be sent at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Or if I haven't quite finished it yet and I want to come back and adjust it later, I could just save a draft. So those are your choices over there. I'm happy with this right now. So I'm going to press assign. And when I press assign, it's going to notify my students in this classroom, and it's going to go and pop it on the assign page. So it's now on the stream page. At the top of the stream, there it is, Andrew Caffrey posting an assignment, write a story. So it's sitting there right at the top of the stream. So when my students come in, they know there's an assignment there for them. So that's just setting an assignment. You'll notice on classwork and create, there were some other choices. So just taking you through the others, quiz assignment, that's exactly the same thing again, but attaching a Google form as a quiz. Google Forms can mark themselves, and we've done some workshops, and I think I'm doing another one on Friday about Google Forms. But if you've got a Google form, it can mark itself and hand the grade straight back to Google Classroom. So that's what it means by quiz assignment. Question is just asking a quick question of our students. Maybe I don't want to go to all the effort of building a quiz in Google Forms. I want to ask a quick sort of yes or no question. So for that, I can go to create and question. And maybe I'm going to ask, how are you feeling today? And then at the end of that, I give them some options. I don't want a short answer there. I'll make that multiple choice. And I might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just some numbers. And 5 is amazing. So I'm just giving them a little score there that my students can just ask as a check-in. So thinking about the students' well-being, particularly on distance learning, they could just pick a score off that and hand that in. And over on the right-hand side here, the only thing I probably want to do with that question is have it so the students couldn't see the class summary. So they couldn't see a little graph of all the answers. And then ask, and that's just going to put that question into my stream again. So now over here on the stream, there's a question, how are you feeling today, is in there as an option for students to fill in as well. So that's just asking a question. That's from create question. Create material is when I've got just a document that I want the students to have, a syllabus, maybe some slides that I used in a lesson. I haven't really got to do anything with them. It's not an activity. It's just, here is some resources for you. And that's what create material is. And then I would say the one that you probably end up over time using the most is create, reuse, post. Because create, reuse, post means you can go and grab an assignment you've already set somewhere else, bring it into Google Classroom, and then reuse it in the classroom again. So if you're teaching this course the second year, you could reuse posts from last year. Or if you teach 2 classes in 1 year group, you could reuse posts there. And finally, for reuse, if you're a co-teacher on someone else's classroom, you could reuse from there as well. So there's lots of ways you can sort of share that process of creating lessons rather than reinventing the wheel every time you want to create a lesson. Don't forget, as I go through this, by the way, if you've got any questions, if you're watching on YouTube, you can just click on the comment area and type your questions in. And at the end of the video, I'll go through any questions and answer any questions people have got about Google Classroom. So feel free to use the comment area there, and we'll come to that later. So that's the classwork page in Google Classroom. So that's what it looks like when we assign work. But then what does it look like when students actually do something? So I'm just going to change classrooms into my Egyptians classroom, which has got some work in. And down here, I set some work, which is do your project, to 3 students. And if I click on that, it takes me to the students, and I can see 3 students here and the pieces of work they've done. So there's little images there on the screen of the work they've done. When I click on any of that work, it will just open up the student's work for me. And it opens up in this sort of special window where I see the work sitting there. So this area, this white space where it says name, that's the worksheet that I assigned. At the top here, I can just jump from student to student. So if I want to just jump around, see the work, I can do. And I can see this at any point. So a student doesn't have to have handed in their work for me to see it. From the moment I press assign, I can go and look at my students. And if the students were on it typing right now, I would just see those letters appearing as they're typing away. So it's live, real time. I can leave feedback if I want to, any point I want. Can go that way. Also at the top here, there's some arrow buttons, and I can move forward and back and click through my class and go through each student. In the right-hand side, I must have chosen to grade this out of 100 because I have a grade box here out of 100. So I can just put grades in there. I'll give them 80 maybe. And I have the option to send a private comment to them. If I want to say, hey, this is great, but it'd be better if you did this, or leave them some end feedback when they're finished, I can use the private comments box for that. So I have an option in this sort of window to leave feedback and to put grades in. What I see in that middle window is whatever they've handed in, and it doesn't have to be a Google Doc. So if you're an art teacher, maybe you might ask your students to go and make something. They could take a photo, put the photo of the work in there, and again, you could comment and grade it on the right-hand side. Or it could be a video, it could be anything that can be handed in as a file type in Google Drive that will appear over there. PDFs, Word documents, Excel, whatever you might have worked with, they can hand in over there. You can, on the right-hand side, then grade and comment. So That's just what it looks like when a piece of work comes in. Because we've got work in this classroom, I then want to show you what happens at the top here. So we've talked about the stream page, we talked about classwork and people. But over on the grades page, that's a sort of mark book for us as teachers. So again, we've seen that project that I assigned this class. We've seen the students, very unrealistic classroom this with only 3 students. But we've seen the students on the left-hand side, and then the score that they've each got for their work there on that. And obviously, if you did multiple assignments, it would be just like your mark book at school, multiple rows coming in with the grades on. If I click any student's name in the grade book, so let's click Alison's name, it shows me, it's a bit like looking at her book, it shows me all the work that Alison's done in this classroom. So I can see all the work that she's done, when she handed it in, and it's sort of just the history of her work within Google Classroom. So real just nice, easy way of seeing one student's work is to go to grades and go to the student's name that way. And that sort of takes us through what it looks like on the class page. So it has a stream, classwork, people, and grades. A couple of additional things I want to just mention about Google Classroom. And the first one is back on the classes page. So on the classes page, I see all of my classes that I've got that I've created or have been created for me for Google Classroom. And that's great on your first year, just having your classes in. But at the end of the year, you don't really want last year's classes hanging around. So you have an option with any classroom to hit the 3 dots, the little small snowman, and you can press archive. Archive doesn't delete anything, so the work all stays. All the assignments can be reused in new classrooms, but it moves it off this page for you and students. So it really helps students if at the year end or the point that you stop teaching a class, you archive off your classrooms. The other option on this page is to copy a classroom. If you copy a classroom, what it does is it obviously creates a new Year 7 maths class in this case, but all of the assignments that I've created go back into that classroom as drafts. That's really useful if you teach courses with multiple students starting at different times, because you can make a new copy of the classroom, send them assignment 1, and then they're up and running again, and then assignment 2 when the right time comes around. So it's really useful if you've got sort of a lot of repeated classes to copy classrooms on this page, and then you don't have to retype everything back in again. And I know we could press reuse post and go back and get the post, but this means everything's in draft already, so it just saves a little bit more time on that page. And then edit obviously allows me to change the names, and move allows me to move where it is on the page. So I can sort of move the order of things on that page around so that I've got them in a logical order to me, a bit like we could move on the bar. And that really is a quick guided tour of Google Classroom and what the main features of Google Classroom are. I'm going to come just to have a look at the chat, see if anyone's asking questions. No questions in the chat today. If you've got any questions, I'll be around for a little bit more time where I'll show you a couple more things. But now's the last sort of chance to get them in the chat. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. So I'm going to jump back into Classroom now. I've closed my slides down, so I'm going to have to have my slides back up. A couple of online tools that are available for you to use. So one is called First Day of Classroom. First Day of Classroom was created and it sits in the Google for Education Teach Center. You can find it by just Google searching First Day of Classroom. And it's a really useful sort of tool. It takes you through the basics of what I've just showed you today, and some nice tips and tricks from a range of teachers who are using Classroom and the different ways in which they're sort of using the stream page or the assignments or adding materials and so on. So if you need that sort of bank of how do I do this, First Day of Classroom is well worth a look in terms of content. And then the other thing is, over at EdTechTeam, we developed an online course for Google Classroom, and it's available at edtechteam.online /ASA. Would help us spell my EdTechTeam right, wouldn't it? Yep, EdTechTeam online /ASA. And that will take you to our online page, which has been sponsored by ASA. And on this page, we have a couple of courses relating to that are free to do. We have one called Introduction to Google Classroom, which is for beginners, and then one called Google Classroom Intermediate, so it's more advanced tools within Google Classroom that, again, take you through things step by step, and you can get a certificate to prove your competency with Google Classroom. So if you're looking for how to take this work a bit further, check out the online course there as well on our website. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on Tuesday. Tomorrow and Thursday, we're doing 2 webinars with Google for Education. So details are on our page, but we're on the Google for Education channel tomorrow and Thursday. And on Friday, we're digging into Google Forms in detail. So if you want to know more about Google Forms, join us at 3:30 on Friday. Thanks for watching today. Stay safe, everyone. See you all soon. Bye-bye.